everyone, welcome to the NGA podcast. Each episode will dive into all things gymnastics. Whether you're guiding a team, cheering from the sidelines, or training to reach peak performance, we're here to share expert tips and inspiring stories that will empower you to excel. I'm your host, Rebecca Grady, and I'm so excited to kick off this journey with you. But I'm not doing this alone. I have an amazing team of co-hosts joining me. We all bring different experiences and perspectives to the table, and we can't wait to share them with you. So let's meet the team. Ian, do you want to kick us off, share your role with NGA, and maybe some of your gymnastics background?
Excellent. Yeah, my name is Dr. Ian Kreider. I am the head of the wellness committee for NGA. I'm a physical therapist out of the Nashville, Tennessee area. And before I became a PT, I was a gymnast myself for 16 years, all the way through college. Got to compete for Springfield College up in Massachusetts all 4 years. And I've also been a coach now for almost 20 years, which is weird to say because I'm only 23, or maybe a little older than that. But I love gymnastics. I love helping gymnasts and coaches and parents learn how to stay healthy.
Hey, I'm Mike Nador, the men's program administrator for NGA. I have an extensive background in the sport. I've owned a club for 45 years and been coaching longer than that because I coached when I was going to Arizona State University. So I've coached everything from preschool to junior national, senior national, Olympic level. And my main background is in men's gymnastics. And looking forward to this podcast and sharing some of my experiences with you guys.
My name is Thomas Britton. I am the NGA Director of Marketing and Men's National Judges Administrator. So I work with Mike in the men's program primarily. I'm also the Indiana State Chair, and I coach at Rising Star Gymnastics in Bloomington, Indiana. I was a gymnast for about 15 years of my life down in southern Indiana, and then continued coaching all the way through college. And this is all I love to do, and I think I will probably continue to do it the rest of my life, and I just love gymnastics. So, thanks.
Hey, everybody. Rob Axelrod here. I'm a Jersey boy, but now I'm in PA. Been here about 10 years. I'm an elite gymnastics coach, but I coach all levels. I'm your PA representative for the NGA, and I guess I'm probably most known for doing as many camps as possible that we could get out and do for NGA. One of my favorite things to do, get out there and help educate those that are in the sport and love it as much as we do. And my big motto is, I don't just love gymnastics, I love teaching children who love doing gymnastics.
And I'm Rebecca Grady. I am out of the East Tennessee area. I'm a mental health counselor, and I do the mental wellness program for NGA. I coached when I was getting my education, and now I do mental training for gymnasts. So now that we've met the team, let's dive into the first topic. State and regionals are just around the corner, and this is the time when all the training, preparation, and mental toughness come together. In today's episode, we're going to talk post-competition reflection and about the do's and don'ts for gymnasts and coaches heading into championships. So to get started, I want to ask everyone, with state and regionals coming up, what's the most important thing gymnasts and coaches should be focusing on in the gym? And what are some of the ways they might make their preparation a little bit more challenging? Who wants to start?
Well, I love this topic, so I'm happy to start. So I'm a huge planner, programmer person. So my girls have been going through a 20-week to peak plan. So they have assignments every day that they're in the gym, and the goal is to peak at a certain time. Most of them are peaking at state. And so that's how the plan works. But if they needed to peak at regionals, then we would shift the plan over, but it would still be 20 weeks. And so towards the end, like maybe let's say the last month, right before that peak meet, the first 2 weeks are the hardest weeks of their entire season. So they're doing lots of routines, lots of numbers. We're really focused on the little things at this point. So we're focused on landings. We're focused on getting those elbows straight or those knees locked out, toes pointed, trying to get back those last few tenths. Hopefully at this point, we're not trying to learn a new skill. We're not trying to add anything new in, and we're just fine tuning. And then the last 2 weeks, so we do 2 weeks of really tough stuff, and then we have a 2-week taper. And it's really easy to see if you've ever been a runner before. You don't do your heaviest run the the day before, or even the week before your race, right? You would build up to the mileage and then you taper down at the end. And that's what I do for my gymnasts as well. We build up to more than what they would need. So that way, by the time they get to the thing that they actually need to do, it's so incredibly easy that they don't even have to think about it, right? So their heaviest might be, 3 routines on floor, which is a lot, right? And then at the end, right before state or right before that peak meet, we're going down to just 1 routine. And at the very beginning, when they had a 1 routine day on all 4 events, it was a big deal. They're like, oh man, it's 1 routine on all 4 events. But now that we've gone above and beyond that, they get to that 1 on 4 day and they're like, oh man, great. And they actually said this last week. They're like, oh man, this is going to be so easy. I'm like, yes, exactly. And it wouldn't have been easy unless we did the hard stuff. So that's kind of where we're at. That's kind of where my brain is at right before that championship type meet.
Yeah, I'd like to jump in on that. We're the same way with our tapering off, especially now that we're getting closer to the state meets. I like to kind of do my week the way the week is going to be before the state meet. So like we may have a big set of numbers on Monday and Tuesday, and we start to taper off on Thursday, and Friday's like their lightest day as if it were the competition, so that they get in all their workouts. And like, again, just like Ian said, that look, if we're making 5 vaults or 6 vaults, or usually 8's my max, but you're doing 1 or 2 in warm-ups and 2 for competition, it's 4. So you're doing half. If you're doing 2 full floor routines, you're doing 1. It's easy. But we might do 1 full floor routine and then 3 of each pass where we can work on our landings. And that's the big thing for me too, is we want to just, again, like just jumping off of Dr. Ian there, we don't want to have anything new, but we really want to focus on maybe there's a little section in there like their lead pass or their front pass or their double salto pass. Like that may be something we might focus on a little bit more before the actual day of the state competition. And we make it sometimes a little bit easier at states, because if it's just a score to get to regionals, we definitely don't want to peak them out at states and then regionals is a flop. So it's more easy for us here at Aerials that we really pump it up during the week, get them going a little bit harder, and then taper it off towards the end. It's been working out great for us in order for performances at the higher competitions. The biggest problem I think we have is the nerves, and I think everybody might agree on that one, is that how can we in the gym, with our culture in the gym, to be able to settle it down, make it less nerve-wracking in the gym? Because pretty much if you're that person who falls on the same skill all the time and it happens in the gym, well, I don't expect it to happen at the meet. If it does, well, great, congratulations. So we try to soften up. We do a little full team building. We've been doing this marble stick thing. So there's a big glass jar in the gym and a big, huge bag, like 3,000 marbles. And for every stick they get to put a marble in. And next to the marble jar is a big whiteboard. And we're looking for 500 sticks. And that's from all of our level 3s all the way up to our level 10s. And so, level 3s have, handstand, pirouette, dismount, or they have a front tuck or a back tuck off a beam. It's kind of easy. You got your level 10s doing a double full or a 1.5 dismount, a little bit harder. So they can get as many sticks as possible in their assignments. There's no extras, but if they have 5 routines and they can get 1 marble for sticking or staying on the beam, and then a marble for sticking their dismount. And then I added in making your flight series or sticking your flight series with no wobbles. And your flight series might be handstand step down, or it might be handspring layout or handspring layout. So it's just as hard for each of the different levels, but they all get to contribute to that. And we're like, last week I think we were at 450. We didn't quite get our 500 goals. Instead of increasing our stick goal, we're going to leave it the same. We're going to leave it at 500, and we're going to try to make our 500 goal. And it's a big thing inside the gym. The kids ring the bell, they wipe off the board, they change the number. Pretty fun.
Yeah, what I'm gathering so far is that, I think we all share the same sentiment at this point in the year. We're not worried about making these routines, worried about how well can we hit these and how clean can we hit these, right? Like Ian said, we're fine tuning. You get into maybe your very first in-house meet in December, if you're doing one of those, or your first competitions late December, early January, right? It's like, okay, we've been working on these routines all fall. Let's go see if we can just go hit all 4, right? Or all 6 for us. But once you get into the championship portion of the season, we shouldn't be at a point where we're worried about, okay, are we going to make the skills in this routine? It's about how clean can we make these? Are we going to stick all of our landings? How can we shave these tenths off to the best of our ability, right? And another thing that I really like that Rob said is, since we're not as worried about making the routines right now, we're just nervous because it is the championship portion of the season, right? There's a little bit more at stake. And my coach when I was younger told me something that always stuck with me, right? He goes, you have parents and teammates constantly like, oh, don't be nervous. You've been preparing really well. My coach always told me, well, don't not be nervous. It's good to be nervous. That means you care about how you perform, right? And I think that's very true. And I was always trying to suppress my nervousness, and it was really hard. It gave me a lot of anxiety. But it's how you use it, right? You got to use it to feel confident in yourself and, bring you to that edge to be right where you need to be come competition time, instead of letting, it wreck your brain and, makes you regress your routines. And Rebecca, I'm sure you could speak on that a little bit, as far as the mental portion goes. But I think, the mental game is a bigger factor into the later parts of the postseason than it is, especially when you're starting out. So,
Yeah, Tom, I think, all of you guys are definitely hitting the mark as far as the periodization and tapering, doing less towards the end before the big competitions. The one piece that I see, I want to bring up because it's really important. You have to make what's going to happen in competition, try to replicate that in the gym as close as you can. They're going to be under more pressure at the competition. It's a whole different thing. There's no great way to prepare for it, but you have to prepare the best that you can. And the best way to do that is to duplicate or replicate rather what's happening in the gym as what's going to happen at the competition. So you have to put some pressure on the athlete. So when you're doing that one, maybe that one routine that they're going to do, prior to the big competition that week before, you have to put a lot of pressure on that and say, this is it. This is your competition set. You've got to, hit this set. And the other thing you can do is the surroundings. What is it going to be like? Is it going to be quiet? Is it going to be noisy? If it's going to be noisy, bring up the noise during the competition. Have the other guys in the team cheering and yelling or making noise or distracting or whatever they can, because that's going to happen at the competition. So to replicate what you think is going to happen in the competition in your final preparation is really important to prepare the athlete for what's going to happen. And it's not going to be exact, but you just do the best you can. And the other thing is to take some pressure off is, we call it protect the team score. You're going out there and you're going to hit that routine because you're going to protect the team score and how well our team does. And so it kind of takes the pressure off the individual, puts it more on a team and a group. And I think that's important also. So those two main factors kind of replicate what's happening or what's going to happen in the competition and take the pressure off by, this is a team event. Let's protect the team score. We're behind you 100%. Go out there, hit your routine. And then it's not just them out there. It's the team is behind them while they're out there. And I think that's really beneficial. So,
yeah, I think you raise a good point there that, coaches dictate the pace and the temperature of practice, right? So from warm-ups, you decide what the temperature of the practice is going to be by your actions and by the words that you say and the stance that you hold and all these things, right? So that doesn't mean that the pressure and the temperature has to be high all the time and you always need to be on it and you always need to be there. There's sometimes where I deliberately lower the temperature of practice, where I go, hey, this is supposed to be an easy week. Yeah, we still got some routines, but we're trying to recover this week so that way we can bump up more numbers and do more things or get ready for this meet or whatever it is. And so I purposefully will lower the temperature of practice, and I'll joke around a little bit more with the kids, or warm-ups is more of a fun warm-up versus the structured meet warm-up that we would do. And I think that's an important thing to remember, is that it doesn't have to be high temperature all the time, shouldn't be low temperature all the time, but it should fluctuate and you get to dictate that.
Yeah, I'd like to add into that too. Just like Mike was talking about, having you practice what it's going to be like in the game time situation, so to speak. We do distraction Thursdays, and so on beam we come up with some crazy things. The kids play, dance around the beam, singing "Ring Around the Rosie," or they're throwing pit blocks back and forth, and one of the ones is I lay underneath the beam while they're going, right? So I have faith in them that they're not going to fall, and there I am just laying underneath the beam, and it's kind of cool. You have to make sure that you pick the right kid that is definitely not going to fall, and that's been going really well. But the other thing we like to do is we do meet warm up, and then I put in a ghost. So let's say I have 2 level 10s, and so the level 10s are going to be working out and they're going to be doing timed warm ups. Well, they're not going to get 2 timed warm ups with 2 kids. It's going to be time warm-ups with 7 kids or even 8 kids in the squad. So it's 1 kid, 3 ghosts, another kid goes, then 2 more ghosts, and then we're back to the 1 kid. So we're replicating what the real warm-up is going to be like at the gym. And then they're, okay, I'm ready to go. No, sit. And then we wait. We practice waiting, because sometimes we have to wait for the judge or there's a backup. And now you got 5 minutes. Like, I'll put a number up on the clock and I'll say, okay, at 46, we're going to start. And they're like, 46? That's 7 minutes. You never know. Might have to wait 7 minutes. Next time I do it, it might be a 3-minute wait. Next time we do it might be, all right, as soon as we're done, all right, warm-ups, you're first, you got to go. And they have to go. Changing all of that. And the reason why I try to do that is, just like Mike said, you want to try to replicate as much as possible. But I'll share a story with you. I coached a girl, and her dad was a professional baseball pitcher, 15 years in the starting lineup for 3 different sports. I won't mention his name because maybe he doesn't want it to be mentioned. But one of the things I picked his brain was, how did they prepare? Every time in the Major League Baseball, they would go to the night game. So it's a night game. So they get the lights turned on, and they would suit up in uniform, and they play crowd noises, and they would go and they would pitch, and they would try to replicate as if there were people in the crowd and the time of the day and all of those different things. And you know what he said to me? No matter how much that they actually tried to prepare to replicate, there's nothing like game day. And his pitch speed went up 3 miles an hour on every pitch on game day, regardless. It never, ever reached the speeds that he pitched during the game that he did during practice. So that was really helpful to me, because no matter how much I try to replicate it, there's always going to be that one endorphin, adrenaline, whatever factor, whatever scientific term you want to put on there. There's nothing like game day, and you can't replicate it, but you can come darn near close, and at least you can have them accepting the fact that this could happen out of me, this could happen out of me, this could happen out of me, and at least they're more prepared than to just say, hey, well, forget it. Just why don't you get up? I'll give you 3 minutes, warm up, and we'll do routines. So I just wanted to throw that in there.
Yeah, that's good, Rob. I think in golf they call it like a waggle, like what you do before you hit the ball. Everyone does something a little bit different. But as an athlete, you have to know when you're preparing to compete, okay, I'm going to, you're next step in line. So what do? Are you mentally preparing? Are you going through your routine in your head, chalking up, at a certain time? So making all those things as consistent. So you're going to do them just like you're doing them in practice. You're going to do them at the competition. Rob's right. You can't replicate or duplicate what's going to happen. I'll tell you a story. We were at, Olympic Games 2016, and, we had guys up on, it was finals. And one of our athletes, literally the crowd started booing the Americans, started booing him during the routine. And, unfortunately, he came from a college background where everyone's cheering and cheering for him. So it really messed him up. And so we had to prepare for those type of things that were going to unfortunately happen at a competition. There's some countries that don't like other countries, you might get that heckling parent or something in the crowd. You just don't know what you're going to run into. And so you have to prepare the best you can. But there's some things you just don't expect and can't prepare for. You just do the best you can.
Yeah, if you don't mind, just two more little things I'd like to throw in there. Same situation. I had an athlete at level 9 Easterns, and she's in first place. I don't know, but people are trying to tell me I don't want to know about it, right? And so she's there like, yeah, go, screaming for the next girl that's going. And I finally had to walk over to him like, will you just shut up? You're next. Stand up, be quiet, go over there and save some energy for your own routine. I'm next. Here she is. Turning purple in the face, screaming for this girl. And so that was a really big thing for me to try to teach her to, like, it's great to cheer, and I know you want to cheer, but when it's your turn, maybe 1 or 2 kids out, just walk away. So my athlete who's at Maryland, Sarah, when she's number 2 in the lineup so far, and I think I don't know where she's ranked, but she's kicking butt. She's got like a 9.8 average on bars so far this season. They're coming up into their postseason, right? And so when it's her turn, she's second on bars. So it's really hard to cheer for the first kid up who's the starter, because her routine is the way we trained it. She turns away from everyone. She gets in her own head, in her own zone. She does her own mental little preparation. And I remember like the first time sitting in the crowd, because that was hard for me, right? I'm in the crowd, like I'm supposed to be on the floor coaching this kid, and I'm like pacing back and forth in the crowd. And somebody said to me, what is she doing? She's staring at the wall. I'm like, oh, that's what we trained to do. And, Like, is that something they taught her in college? No, we've been doing it for years, since she was a little kid. And then, she turns around and it's game time and boom, then she hits her routine. And consistency, I feel in the gym, in practice, and consistency prepping for your routine is going to show up with your consistency for your routines. Your most consistent kids in competition are your most consistent kids in the gym. That's a definite, easy figure that one out. But so yeah, those two stories are pretty important, I think, to share. Like, you have a routine, make sure you do your routine at the competition, don't change it. No one's screaming their head off for the next kid to go in competition in the gym, and this seems a
Yeah,
little.
you're exactly right. When there's in men's gymnastics, you'll see it. You always see it on pommel horse. The next guy up, sometimes he'll have his eyes closed and he'll be physically moving his body, doing his routine, preparing because he's up next. And so
Yeah.
that's what I mean, kind of like that waggle. You see it on parallel bars, the way they prep the bars and things that they do. It's exactly the same. And you have to, you have to practice that way, especially on men's parallel bars. They're putting honey on them, they're putting chalk on the bars, all of that. Sometimes that has to be practiced. And if your teammates are involved in setting the bars and doing that, when you're in practice, you have to practice it just like it's going to be in the meet, so everything goes smoothly. So I think more of that mental preparation and preparing just like it's going to be in the competition, the best that you can, is going to give your athlete a huge advantage, or your team a huge advantage over the teams that aren't doing that, for sure.
Hey, Mike, at the highest level, did you let your other teammates and athletes help to get the bars prepared for the next guy up? Or, sometimes it's here in the gym, I always let the kids set the boards for each other, like, kick the handman in or whatever. And then at the meet, they're all down the other end and I'm doing it all like, what's your setting? Where's your board go? Right. So,
No, sure. It's a timed situation, because from the time the guy lands until the judge is ready to score it, you only have so much time. And once that judge is ready and raises his hand, you've got to be ready to go.
Yeah.
And so it takes the whole team sometimes on the parallel bars to set the bars, get them chalked the way the teams or that guy likes them, chalked up so he can do his routine. So absolutely, yeah, we have the team involved.
I think that's really good to know. It's really great maybe for parents to hear that too, and they see that everybody's helping out, that it's not the coach being lazy, or, that the coach doesn't know where my daughter's board set goes, right? It's more about, like you said, like, we're in a time crunch here. We want to get make the best use of our time that we have for warm-ups in order to be comfortable instead of rushing for competition. That's good. That's great information.
Well, and it's good too because you're creating a team atmosphere. Like, we're helping each other out and we're taking that focus off of ourselves, which I think is so important, especially when it comes to like these big competitions coming up. Because I love that you guys said that you are trying to recreate the competition atmosphere in your gym, because I do the same thing. So this is the time where I've started working with the gymnasts with their visualization of actually creating where they'll be going and doing their routines in their mind the same way that they would be doing at the competition. So we discuss the things, the things that are out of their control that kind of freaks them out when they're at competition, whether it's, the bars aren't as bouncy or the floor's different or just like the texture of the beam, like all the things that kind of bother them.
Yeah.
And we visualize those things and how they can bounce back from having those like mental distractions. I think one big thing, just like I think kids forget that they work so hard to choreograph their routines, that they need to do the same thing with their mental preparation. We need to do the same kind of practice. We need to do the same choreography, and they need to do that in the gym, because they can't just show up at a competition and try deep breathing and try to visualize their routines right before they do it and think it's going to work. Like, we need to practice this in the gym and at home. And I always tell them that, your brain really doesn't know the difference between you actually doing the routines and skills versus you visualizing them. So the more reps we can get in, the more like prepared you're going to feel. Do you guys do any type of mental training in your gyms when you're prepping for state and like for championships, like with your team as a whole?
Yeah, I tell my gymnasts, especially injured gymnasts, right? I want them to do visualization. And I say, you can't get an overuse injury in your brain, except, and you might see like some smoke coming out, but that's better.
I know about that.
But yeah, you can't get an overuse injury there. You can do 20 floor routines in your brain. You can't do 20 real floor routines, right?
on
Some people
overload.
can. Some people
But
can.
yeah, I think that was one of the most important things I think I left out, about how you said that, recreating the bars and the bouncing kind of reminded me that sometimes my friends are having a competition and I have a big competition coming up with, an 8 or 9 or a 10 or a regionals or something. And like competitions down the street, I'll say, "Hey, can I pop over in between sessions and borrow the bars? Can we do a couple of sets?" And then the parents like, "What are you doing?" Like, "We're just putting them on a different set of equipment." Or I say, "Let's go to our friend's house and go swing bars over at their house." And they're like, "What do you mean?" Like, "We'll go up the street to, another gym. Won't name any gyms, but we'll go up the street to the other gym and we'll just go up there and just go for an hour and just swing bars." So you're on a different bar set. And that's something that's helpful in recreating is as something that's different. Or, you can bring a judge in and it's great. I always talk about how we drive to work every day. And I guess as gymnastic coaches, we're not as up early, but when I was, maybe 15 years ago, still teaching in public school and coaching gymnastics, at 6:30 in the morning, you're like on, autopilot. You're drinking your coffee and you're driving away, and you can kind of get there on your own. And it's like you're really not paying attention. You're just going through the motions. But then the cop pulls up behind your neck. And I do this every day, and I'm not I'm not breaking any laws, I'm not speeding, but all of a sudden I'm like this. So I try to use that metaphor with gymnasts. When the arm of the judge goes up in the blue blazer to salute, it's like the cop behind them, but they don't drive, so they don't get it. So, but the ones that are starting to drive and they're starting to get it now, they're like, "Wow, you're right, Mr. Robbie. The cop was behind me, and I was just driving along, and I was kind of scared I was going to get pulled." I'm like, "Well, you're not doing anything wrong." But as adults, we do the same thing. So, like, that's one of those things to recreate. Bring a judge in, or put a parent in a blue blazer and have them raise their hand. And lastly is I use inanimate objects as judges. They're like, "Mr. Rob, what's the judge today?" And I'll look over and I'm like, "It's the yellow exercise ball. It's the exit sign. Today, the judge is the rope." And they're like, "Why are we saluting the rope?" Because it doesn't really matter. Just salute anybody. So when you go to salute the judge, it's like saluting the inanimate object, and just salute and go. I'll leave it at that.
I think I'll touch on this a little bit. I think that's one of the I like that metaphor you used, Rob, of like, the cop behind you. As an athlete, who compete, like, not like too long ago, like, I still remember that feeling, right? For me, you're having fun in warm up, and you're with your teammates, you guys warming up, you're stretching. But when the national anthem comes on, like, my heart sinks a little bit. I'm like, all right, it's competition time. All right, we got to go now. And I think that's one of those things that's maybe not talked about enough.
Yeah.
Is like we talked about, you can replicate you can control the factors you can control, right? But some things you just purely don't have control over. And that's how your body like physically reacts when you know it's time to turn it on and you're at a competition. This is real. And I think that's just something really interesting that we've brought up. I think that's a cool thing to think about. So
What do you think, guys, everybody, especially Rebecca, about the desensitization of competition? Like, if you can desensitize that it's competition, maybe that will help too. Like, we try to desensitize our kids to like starstruck. We always bring in like these Olympians, and Alex and Holly were here at our camp, and Miss Mary Wright was here, and Anastasia Webb, Caitlin Ohashi. Like, we bring all these kids into the gym to kind of try to desensitize like the fame or the craziness of competition. Like, what do y'all think about that with preparation?
How do you desensitize it? Like with competition, are you talking about like recreating it in the gym, and then is that what you mean, or
Yeah, like
can you explain more?
desensitizing it to the fact that, like, hey, we're just going to competition. Like, our motto this year, I changed it in the gym, was to, I say just, and they go, do gymnastics. So instead of going in with that, like, hey, we're going to do this and we're going to win, and if we do all these things, we can win. I tell all the girls that, listen, every single one of your routines was designed to win. You don't have to try to win. You just have to do gymnastics. And if you do gymnastics, your routines are good enough to win. And we proved it over and over and over again. Last year, we won states. 2 years ago, we won nationals with the same three girls. Three girls, all scores counted. They won level 8 states in Pennsylvania. Then they went over to nationals, and those same three level 8s, they won the team competition at NGA nationals with 3 kids, all scores count, because they weren't there to try to win. They just come, hey, we're just going through gymnastics. Yeah, we'll just hang out. We're just doing gymnastics. Hey, my turn. Okay, I go next. That's what I mean with the desensitization of, like, hey, you have to make sure your legs are pointed. Hey, if you don't jump from the low bar to the high bar correctly, you're never going to get the score you want, or you really want your scores, you have to stick. Well, we'll just make sticking a norm instead of trying to stick, right? Because the ones, if we say, oh, you have to do 3 routines with 3 stuck dismounts, or none of your routines count. Well, they always don't they don't stick to dismount. How come? Because they make it all the way through the routine. They're like, I just have to stick to dismount to get it done. I got to stick. I better not miss. Boom, they miss. So desensitization, I think for me in the gym, it's been helpful. We're struggling a little bit this year, ebbs and flows, but those same 3 girls that were 8s are now 9s, and it's a whole new ball game. And so stepping it up, it's a whole different world out there at level 9.
No, I think that's actually a really good idea, because that's what I do in mental training too. Like, getting them to focus on, like, I like that you're taking the pressure off of winning, because you're just saying your routines will get you there, if you practice them, if you focus on your skills. And then that takes that extra pressure, because I know a lot of kids, when I'm working with them, they have a lot of perceived pressure, or pressure that they put on themselves. And that's one of those things. So that's like a category of having to win. Then it's disappointing coaches, disappointing parents. And we talk about all those things, and whether, did these people tell you these things that they would be disappointed? And they're like, well, no, my coach says they're proud of me all the time. And I was like, well, then why do you think they would be disappointed then? So we have those discussions and be like, sometimes we add all this extra pressure on ourselves. So I think doing that in the gym is really helpful, having those conversations with them, because kids are constantly thinking about this stuff. They're constantly adding all this stuff to make their routines, their skills harder. And that is one of my main jobs, is getting them to realize, that maybe what they're thinking is really not true, because remember, everything we think isn't always true.
Yeah.
And getting them to focus on the moment of what they need to be doing. So like, if we're doing a back handspring, I need you thinking about that back handspring, or you're tumbling past. I don't want you to think about if this is going to fall, or, well, if I don't make this routine, then I may not get that score and I might not get to regionals. So like, I'm like, those are all things, like, you're kind of self-sabotaging, because you're setting yourself up for failure. Like, if you think about that stuff now, then you're not even giving yourself the chance to do it correctly. You already told yourself you're going to probably mess up.
Yeah, no room left in your brain for some positivity there.
Yeah. So I like that you have those discussions. Does anyone else do that in their gym too?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we have discussions all the time about, like, hey, how many times have you already done this? It's just one more. Right. And with the routines that we have set up, right, where I have this plan, to bring it back to that, right, where they build, and then finally we get to taper off at the end. It's like, just because you're only doing sometimes they'll get a little nervous, right? Like, oh, we're only going to do one routine right before state, like the day before, 2 days before state, we're just going to do one routine. I'm like, yeah, look at how many other routines you've done this year. And I have them journal, and they're supposed to be writing down how many routines they do, and maybe percentage hit and stuff like that, or individual skills. And so they can actually go back and look, like, holy moly, I've done like 35 routines on this event. Yeah, one more is just fine, and then I just do one more at the meet, and there's no big deal then behind it.
It's one of the other things I think that's important that you touched on there, Rebecca, was that how we do have that conversation with them about not putting the pressure on themselves and us. Where does that come from? I wish I could figure that out, because I don't get where they think that they're disappointing me. Like I've said to you guys before, just as friends, look, I'm the first one to grab onto my gymnast and give them a hug when they did awesome, and same one to pick them up off the floor when they did terrible. And it's like, it's okay. It happens. But, I don't know where those come from, but they put these added stresses on. But I think the most pressure that they put on themselves, they get from social media. It's not, well, it's just, I only have to make just this one, and then I can win. I was listening to this guy, I don't remember his name, Japanese man, and he took, just recently, this morning actually, I was listening to it, and he took a bottle of water, and he had it filled with water, and he had some people speak negative. I hate you, you're the worst, I can't stand you, you're a failure. And then he had the other group was speaking positive, loving things to the group of water, and then they froze both water bottles, and they cut a slice, and they looked at the slides underneath the microscope. And on the negative side, they were like incoherent patterns, and on the positive side of the water bottle, there were actually little crystallizations, almost look like snowflakes inside there. So it's like even water, I don't want to say water has feelings, but it was just that same thing that your body is 70% water. So if you're filling yourself with negative attitudes, you're restructuring the cell in your body to feel and act negative, and it's your whole body. So I'm going to use that one today in my lineup with the girls today. So
Yeah, it's important to like get our gymnasts like out of their negative mindsets, especially when they're going into these big competitions. I find that and it's, it has to do with their development, but they're so worried about what others, like how others people see them. And it's trying to get them out of that mindset can be really hard, but it's something that I think what you do in your gym, you keep repeating yourself. Like we need to do that a lot with the kids is so helpful. Like you're teaching them those things. Well, even if they're not responding and you're like, well, I'm always positive and I feel like I'm always there for them. They know that,
yeah,
but you just keep doing it and they're going to start to receive it and they'll start to believe it. It just takes kids a long time, a lot of repetition for them to like really buy in to a lot of the stuff that we're saying to them because they have such a negative view of themselves.
yeah. I just want them to have some more confidence, not cockiness, but confidence. In 2006 or 2009, Michael Jordan was inducted into the Hall of Fame. And I watched this last night. It's about a 15, 18-minute speech. I don't know how I came across it, but I did, and I watched it. I implore all of you, go take a look at it. Just spend the 15 minutes, watch what he had to say. And the coaches that were there, and when the team got picked for such and such, and the other guy was in the audience, and he like heckled the guy in the audience. He's like, "Yeah, you picked so and so and so and so, the 5 guys, and you picked, Johnny over me." He's like, "I'm just telling you, coach, you made the wrong choice." Like he's that confident of an athlete, and he's by far, if anybody asked me who's my favorite athlete, I would say Michael Jordan, because his confidence was he got kicked down so poorly at freshman year at UNC, and you'd think like he hates UNC. I mean, he's UNC blue all through and through. He loves them. He says it in his speech, but he got benched. They make the team, freshman year, but he's the best basketball player to walk on the face of the earth. And he said yesterday, while I was listening to the speech, was that he thanked everybody because you were just another log on the fire to fuel my confidence to be better and show everybody that they were wrong. And so I don't want my athletes to be cocky like that. In fact, I think we all have had them, and I don't want to teach them because they're so cocky they think they can do it all, and then they go to a meet and flop. But I do want their confidence level to be so high, like, oh, we're going to beam, awesome. Wait till they see this one. That would be kind of cool for all of my athletes to get there. Difficult, but it would be fun.
You want to go?
I don't
ahead
know if
and wrap
you
up?
guys can, if you want me to just wrap up. The other thing is that I've seen coaches out there during a competition, and I can tell the coach is nervous, and that nervousness will rub off on the athlete. So if you're that coach, then you get nervous. Do your athletes a favor and stay away from them as much as you can during the competition, or don't show that you're nervous, because that will definitely rub off on your athlete. So just be aware of that possibility.
Yeah, definitely true. I'm a pacer. I like to pace. And so I pace in the gym while they're going so that they know at the meet when I'm pacing, it's the same.
I mean, that's really important in the gym, though, too. Like you said, prepping for these championships, like if you're bringing negative energy in there, or if you're really stressed or you're really anxious, that's going to rub off on your gymnasts. And it's going to be really hard for them to be positive, to have that focused mindset that they need to actually prepare for it. So just being aware of what we're bringing in to just practice every day, especially when it's coming up to these a little bit more stressful times when it comes to championships. I think this was really good for us to like discuss what was going on in championships coming up, like how we can maybe help our gymnasts and our coaches prepare a little bit more for it, and the importance of like reflecting on what they've been doing and how that eventually will lead into postseason and what we're going to be working on. So that's a wrap for this episode of NGA's The Podcast. Thanks for joining us. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe, share, and leave a review. It helps us reach more of the gymnastics community. If you have a topic you want us to cover, reach out. We'd love to hear from you. So until next time, stay happy, healthy, and high performing.